Hello guys! Today I'm going to be giving you 10 world building ideas for your next Minecraft world. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. The Veil of Ignorance. So the Veil of Ignorance was a thought proposal by the American philosopher John Rawls. And the idea goes, imagine a world where, before everyone's born, we all got together and decided on the rules for society and how everything was going to be laid out. Rawls imagines that in this kind of society, we would choose to make a world where no matter where you were born or what you were born into, you would have a chance at a good life. Now I want you to imagine how this would look like for your own Minecraft world. Imagine you were trying to create a city or an entire world or even just one small settlement where no matter who you are in that settlement, you're guaranteed to have an okay life. What do you think that looks like? Does it look retro-futuristic where everybody lives in sort of these brutalist, samey concrete structures? Is it more like cottagecore, like these little flower cottages where everybody has their own little space and nobody's bothered? Do you think that kind of place would have something like a parliament, a direct democracy, or an elected monarchy, or something else altogether? What sort of ideas do you think you'd put into a Minecraft world where you were really genuinely concerned with the quality of life of each and every person in that world? Number 2. Water travel. Imagine a world where for whatever reason, all of these settlements have to be on the water because there's no way to travel by land. This could be for a number of reasons. Maybe these guys haven't invented the wheel yet, so it takes a really long time to move anything over land compared to water where they have boats and canoes and things to get along the rivers. Maybe it's a colony across an ocean, so the only way to get supplies in is to take these big boats that go across the ocean, so it isn't really convenient to start going inland. Or maybe there's some sort of disease that keeps people from wanting to penetrate into the interior. Whether you decide to focus on oceans or rivers or whatever it is, it could be really cool to include the new Nautilus mob that's going to be coming into the game real soon. You could also have tons of cool ocean ruins, almost like Atlantis or some sort of flooded civilization. And you could come up with interesting lore about how people treat the ships and view the ships that they use. Maybe they see the ships as magical or mystical. Or maybe they're super technical about it and they're so advanced that they can build an entire ship in one day. Number 3. Enderman Colony. Imagine a world that is currently being colonized by Endermen. What do you think their architecture would look like, and how would they interact with the other inhabitants of the overworld? For this one, I'm here in a desert, because I figure the Endermen would probably enjoy hanging out in the desert, since there isn't a lot of water around, and maybe the sand and the sandstone would remind them of home. So maybe the richer Endermen can build their homes out of things like endstone, while the poorer Endermen are resorting to using sandstone because they can't afford to have those materials imported across the dimensional lines. Maybe their architecture is super weird and really vertical since they can teleport. Maybe they don't even have doors because they can just teleport in and out of buildings. And they probably wouldn't need to have steep roofs since they wouldn't be building in places that naturally have rain in the overworld. In any case, I think the idea of an Enderman colony in the overworld would be a pretty cool idea to start off a new world. Number 4. The Stone Age. I think most of us tend to build in a sort of fantasy medieval style, but with the new spears coming out, there's never been a better time to hop back into the Stone Age and try your hand at building something Neolithic. Instead of farms, maybe these people are hunter-gatherers, so you could make them have nomadic camps, or maybe they have these houses that are made out of mud brick with thatch roofs. Maybe they like to bury their dead in these big earthen mounds. And they would probably be starting to get into things like mining, especially for things like salt, which are really necessary for day-to-day life and for sedentary life. But since they're in the Stone Age, they might even be starting to use copper. In the real world, this transitionary period was called the Chalcolithic, when people started using copper while they were still using mostly stone tools. So consider getting out of your comfort zone by getting a little bit into the Stone Age. Number 5. Monster Lairs. So imagine a world that is inhabited by these great mythical beasts, things like the Kraken or the Naga, giant sea serpents, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chimera or Medusa. I think this could be really interesting for a few reasons. One, if you're trying to get out of your comfort zone, it's always cool to try and build some organics, especially if you have some 3D model references. Also, every good monster has to have a lair, so you could come up with some really cool idea for all these different monster lairs. From a more cultural perspective, you could also question whether people want to live really far away from the monsters or really close to the monsters. Maybe a lot of people find it safer to try and appease these monsters with gifts of gold and wine and stuff instead of trying to run away from them. So maybe these communities spring up around these lairs. You could build something like a Minotaur's maze, and maybe all around the walls of the maze are these little shacks of people who sort of worship the Minotaur as their protector. maybe even from other monsters. Number 6, living architecture. A lot of times it can get boring building the same old farmhouses over and over. So why don't you try considering a culture that builds things out of living architecture? Now, this could be done in a few ways. Right here we have a mushroom house. This is a pretty old one because I told myself I wouldn't do any new builds for this video, but you could envision something like the Telvanni architecture from the Elder Scrolls series. It doesn't even have to be mushrooms though. Maybe people grow these big organic looking trees to live in. So they shape the trees just like you would shape a bonsai tree, except you're trying to make a livable structure out of it. Or maybe they do it with crystals. Maybe you're building a world for people who live on such a large time scale that they just have nothing better to do than to sit around for 100 years and wait for a crystal to grow into a big palace. You could also imagine that they're building things out of sort of big, magically enlarged plants. So maybe people are living out of these huge pumpkins or gourds. Or maybe it's an underwater civilization and you're using the new Nautilus and people are living inside of these living coral huts or sort of bubbles underneath the water. Whatever it is, imagine an architecture that doesn't destroy the nature around it, but rather builds it up into something livable and beautiful. I'm going to talk about number 7 and number 8 together because I think that they're two really interesting but slightly different concepts. So number 7 is the Roadside Picnic. Specifically, I'm referencing a Russian novel by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. And the idea of the Roadside Picnic is, what if aliens came to Earth but didn't care? What if they came and dumped a bunch of their garbage and we had to sort of pick up the pieces and find out how to make meaning or purpose or even something valuable out of that? The Roadside Picnic is basically a twist on alien visitation with an emphasis on pollution and the ways that we pollute the world in such a way that is completely inconceivable to animals. So a spark plug to a squirrel would be what alien technology is to us. So imagine if aliens came to your Minecraft world and they just left a bunch of junk there, how would it impact things? How would it impact the culture, the government? Would people try to hoard all these dangerous alien things? Are the alien things dangerous in your world, or are they not so pollutive? In Roadside Picnic, the thing is that all this alien stuff comes with what are called anomalies, sort of situations that bend time and physics in ways that normal people can't understand. It's all alien. And this is going to lead into number 8, which is the post-apocalyptic utopia. The post-apocalyptic utopia is a world that went through some big horrible event and came out the other side better for it. Maybe it was some kind of alien visitation, but maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe it was a big economic collapse or a nuke or some big war that happened. Whatever it is, something bad happened and now people are picking up the pieces and they're trying to do better than before. This is sort of the idea behind solar punk. So solar punk is an aesthetic that sort of deals with solar energy and renewable energy, ideas for a greener future, with a big emphasis on community and sustainability. But your post-apocalyptic utopia doesn't have to be solar punk. It can be any sort of aesthetic that you like, really. It could be cottagecore or it could be futuristic. Whatever you think a utopia would look like after the so-called end of the world, you should run with it and try and explore those themes in your world building. Number 9. Time collision. This is a sort of generic cyberpunk city block, but imagine, if you will, it was colliding with a big Bronze Age city from Mesopotamia. Imagine there were portals opening up and floating islands coming in. Imagine there was a sort of medieval industrial building sticking halfway into this one, and just 2 blocks down the street there was a typical American-style suburb with a white picket fence. The time collision is a world where all sorts of different weird and wacky time periods are all randomly colliding and crashing into each other in weird and unexpected ways, maybe at different angles. Maybe they're coming in on floating islands, they're coming through portals, they're bursting out of the grounds or dropping from the sky. And the fun part is, you can make this as active or passive as you want. So maybe there's a building literally falling and you could make it look like it's about to crush another one from a totally different time period. Or maybe it's been 50 years since this big cataclysmic event, and we're starting to see a weird sort of hybrid culture that's half like Mesopotamian Bronze Age and half cyberpunk. Or half industrial London sort of Big Ben style and half 10th century Chinese. However you decide to take this idea, I think the crazier and wackier you go with it, the more fun it's going to be. And there are a lot of opportunities to do some really cool dynamic builds. Number 10, Golem World. This idea is basically the plot of the film WALL-E. Imagine building a world that has been completely abandoned, and you can make this in whatever time period you really want, except that there are still golems walking around, and they're still trying to operate as best as they can given the circumstances. You can imagine all the golems have advanced stages of oxidization, maybe there's even iron golems walking around with all these big cracks in them. If you know the Studio Ghibli movie Laputa, or Castle in the Sky, you might have seen these big golems were sort of overgrown and still trying to keep the big castle in the sky sort of going, even though the world has stopped around them. I think these guys are really cute, and it's fun to imagine them trying their hardest to keep a society running even after all the humans have disappeared for one reason or another. So guys, those are all of my ideas. I think some of them are really fun, and I think all of them have a lot of potential. Of course, you can mix and match a bunch of different ones. So for instance, the Roadside Picnic with the post-apocalyptic Utopia. Those are both things that you could sort of work together. The idea of bringing in together Monster Lairs and the living architecture. The idea of bringing in, of course, the Stone Age with the time collision, or even the Veil of Ignorance with the Enderman Colony. So maybe you imagine that Endermen, since they're all so similar, maybe they live in a very egalitarian sort of society. That is going to do it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Stick around. I'll try to put out another video in the near-ish future. This is my first one in a while. So if you want to see me getting back into doing this, you can leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.